Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Meet the Goats. This is Racing for Home Persephone, and when I put her up on the stand, my first thought was, oh my God, what have you done to yourself? And how did it happen overnight? She is not quite as bad as like a spring groom, but what in the world? She is a hot mess express, and I swear she did not look like that just a few days ago. I think you'll see, though, that it's not as bad as it looks. It's really hard, though, for me to tell you how she's the best goat I have when she looks like this. So maybe we'll save that little statement until the end. So anyway, this is Racing for Home Persephone. Persephone, or Seph as we call her, is the daughter of Racing for Home Misty Morning, who you met probably previous week if I hold to my posting schedule and my grooming schedule. She is the granddaughter of Racing for Home JC and the great-granddaughter of Soul Oars Emma Lee. So she is fourth generation on my farm. She was not an accidental keeper. She was an instantaneous, sort of like my reaction when I pulled her out today. Oh my God, I have to have her. So I was already targeting that breeding for a keeper animal at that point. So I was targeting Misty Morning and her pairing, right? To say, if the kids come out looking with the same potential that Misty had, I'm going to keep one because Misty performed really, really well in the show ring. She, had everything that I wanted and then some. There's, as I talked about during her video, there were definitely some improvements to be had. But my hope was, right, that next generation would bring those improvements. And boy, howdy did it. Boy, howdy? Really? That came out of my face? Okay, we'll roll with it. Boy, howdy it is. So Persephone pretty much looks just like her mother, right? She's fairly solid white. She's lacking some of the striping. Her coat texture is incredible. It's thick, it's luxurious, it's silky, it's everything it's supposed to be. Her stature and conformation, her top line, the slope of her rump, her ear set is even better. She's got bangs, she's got cheek muffs, she's got a beard. She's pretty much got it all going on. Could it get better? Of course it could, and it will continue to get better. But is it pretty darn good? It is. Persephone also has 2 legs of her master champion. She needs to get a 3rd leg. Her problem, really, honestly, was that she got her first two legs as a junior, and she had to grow up to become a senior, and then I haven't put her in the ring since. So now that she's a senior, she needs to go in the ring, and she hopefully needs to take her home her 3rd leg and become a master champion, which would just make my day. She is shorter in stature and more petite than her mother, which, as we talked about, right, the visual standard and the height standards have gone down a bit. The preference is for smaller, more petite goats. I don't plan to breed extreme petites in any way, shape, or form. There's not going to be any toys or any miniatures on my farm. We've talked about that in the past. But she is smaller in stature than her mother, and she's about, for me, the correct size, right? She's well within standard. She's several inches below the new height standard, but she is not so small that she can't breed naturally, that she can't carry and birth twins if she needs to, or even triplets. And she is more than capable of doing the things that goats are supposed to do naturally, which is, to me, critical, right? When you start to breed those extremes, the really, really teeny tiny or the really, really, really shorts, you start to lose the integrity of their ability to breed naturally, to breed normally. Heck, when they're really that short, then the buck can't even do the job himself, right? He's too tall, and what's he going to do? Get on his knees? You know, like that instinctively. They may do that, I suppose, or you have to put him up on a hay bale, put the girl up on a hay bale to make the girl taller so the buck can reach her. I mean, it becomes human intervention required versus nature. And I don't want that, right? I'm not looking for a breed of goat, nor do I ever want to have or create a breed of goat that can't do goat things naturally. They should be able to breed naturally. They should be able to birth naturally. They should not need human intervention for the things that they are supposed to do in nature. So anyway, that's why she's sort of, right now anyway, Persephone is my ideal goat. She has got coat that is so thick, and this is why it's taken me a long time to finish out back here. Her coat is so thick and so deep, you know, I almost have to do it in sections, get the underneath, get the top. Otherwise, you just miss the whole underneath part. And of course, she's got some bedding stuck back here because her coat is so thick. So, you know, that's just part of the grooming maintenance, is to get that bedding that has gotten stuck in her hair out, get any remaining cashmere. So one of the things I would love to breed her for is to reduce the amount of cashmere in the next generation. She actually got more cashmere than her mother. So she got all the good things in terms of stature, conformation, texture of coat, length of coat, thickness of coat, but she got the bad things because she actually got more cashmere undercoat than what her mother, or even the buck I bred her mother to, had. So that's what I'm working on now, is some leftover undercoat, some bedding stuck in her hair back here. Fun times. But it won't take nearly as long as it took to do the full spring cleanups that you saw me have to do with the bucks. And it's obviously, you know, not nearly as annoying or painful for them because we're not pulling knots out. We're really just getting gunk and schmutz out of their coat, which they prefer, frankly. I'm sure they don't want to be walking around with dirty bedding and, you know, bits of grass and everything else in their coat. So last video I mentioned, you know, really briefly at the end, and that was during Misty Morning's grooming. You know, maybe we should talk about stuff that isn't always goats, right? I don't know, maybe. So talk to me about, or I'd love to hear your thoughts on some good audiobooks, some good podcasts. Oh, I know, it's so hard. All right, before I go on with that question, you see how what she's doing now? She's squatting. That squat is not a signal of pain. It is a little bit of a signal of annoyance, frankly, and I don't blame her. I've been working on the same spot for a few minutes now. But it's not pain. It's sort of the get away from me, I'm done with you, but I just finished that section, so, you know, timing is everything. She got one more big clump back here that I got to work out, and then I'll switch to the other side. But so typically, in my next stop on the route here, after I finish grooming Persephone, is I need to clean stalls. We've had some really big storms recently. The stalls are overdue for cleaning. They're going to be wet and heavy, and it's just going to stink. One of the gentle pleasures that I have is I can throw my headphones on and clean stalls, either listening to an audiobook or a podcast. It's been primarily audiobooks right now, and honestly, my audiobook selections are typically based on, oh my gosh, I don't have one, what's available right this very second, and then I look for mystery, thriller, horror, anything junk. True crime is always fun. I don't do fantasy, I don't do romance, but I'd love to hear what are some good things that you listen to while you're doing your chores, whether it's vacuuming, mopping, cleaning, anything, right? Whatever you've got going on that gives you the opportunity to throw those headphones in and zone out to what you're doing while you're listening to something. What are you listening to? drop a little note in the comments and let me know. I'd love to get some good ideas and some fresh perspectives on some things to listen to. Another podcast I listen to a lot is called Scamfluencers. And that one's hilarious. I think that the hosts do a really good job, the hostesses, I suppose, do a really good job of presenting and speaking. You know, they're pleasant to listen to. And they do a lot of fun stories, right? These are real life stories about scams that have gone on for years, potentially. They dive into how the scam, you know, was born, so to speak, how people fell into it, what the repercussions of it were, and just overall a really good and entertaining coverage of some wild, wild scams out there. So that one's got a lot of episodes, and I haven't even worked through all of them yet, but I'm getting close to working through all of them. They're still publishing new ones. I just, you know, if I catch up, then I have to wait for the new one. So I'm trying to slow down my roll in getting caught up with the backlog, because I don't want to be in a situation where I'm waiting for the next one to drop. So that's one I listen to. And then, you know, in the house, I've taken up a really bad habit. This is terrible to say, but it is what it is I have the, you know, TV running with whatever show. A lot of times it's the news. Local news, CNN tends to be what's on the TV. Then I've got a YouTube channel up, similar to mine, right? Watching, you know, and I really do get terribly sucked into the trashy reaction channels of people who, you know, tell me all the things that are happening on the TikTok in places where I don't pay attention and don't play, and give me all the gossip. So that's my guilty pleasure right now, is I'm listening to a lot of those. And a lot of them, my goodness, are so well researched, so well done. And I don't have to be on the platform or have listened to or followed the people that they're, you know, kind of commenting on, because they give me everything I need to be caught up. Less than, you know, 30 minutes usually, sometimes less than an hour. I get all the dirt. I know what I've had. I had my entertainment, and I can move on and forget about it. But for that moment, it entertains me. And then, you know, I read a lot. I'm an avid reader. I always have been. I am a horrific reader in terms of, you know, I'll call it good stuff to read. Instead, I absolutely live for anything horror, anything mystery thriller, anything psychological, anything that will make me think or give me reason to pause. And I admittedly, you know, I do the traditional horror, of course, but I also love the splatterpunk and the extreme horror outlets. But I also love a good tale, right? So like a Frida McFadden type of tale where you think you have the mystery solved, and then there's 17 twists along the way. And yeah, some of them are predictable, some of them are not. But by the time you're done, you're kind of looking back going, isn't that what I predicted from the start? Or wait a minute, what happened there? How did that get there? How do we get from there to here? I love those. So I'm always looking for new authors in that genre, especially the ones that are truly psychological. My TV watching tends to be very similar in nature, right? Like, I don't know how many of you watched Mindhunter on Netflix, but that to me was an incredible show. I wish it was still around. The original Criminal Minds was awesome for me. I loved it. I'm currently, let's see, what are we currently watching? Not a whole heck of a lot. I have Matlock on my list, and I did watch the premiere, but for whatever reason, I haven't gotten back to it. And I will say that there's a lot of new shows that just aren't cutting it for me, in the same way that the old shows did. I'm not connecting with the characters. I'm not necessarily as interested in the storyline. And I guess part of it, maybe this is the part, I have a personal preference for storylines that begin and end in an episode or in a small set of episodes. Like I love watching the limited series on Netflix, right? Where maybe it's no more than, 8 episodes, and I know that I'm going to be finished with it. Because I can't remember the stuff season to season, break to break. So, a show that kind of has a storyline, opens and finishes in the same episode, or the same 2 or 3 episodes max, are really my sweet spot. And some of it is just time related, right? I don't know that I'm going to have the time to ever come back and finish it if you leave me hanging. And if I forget about it, well, then I never go back to it. So that's what's on my Kindle. That's what's in my headset, my podcasts, my audiobooks. Always looking for recommendations, always looking for suggestions. So please, please, please drop a comment. Let me know what you're watching now. Let me know what you're reading now. If it hits my sweet spot, I will absolutely check it out, because I read about 2 to 3 books a week, I would say, on average. And these are not short books. Usually I'm looking for books that are upwards of 400 pages, because I really want to get into the story. That's my preference. So yeah, when I talked about time management, I didn't mention any of this, right? But I actually think it's funny that, people see me as just wall-to-wall busy. And I am. And I like to be wall-to-wall busy. I prefer to be wall-to-wall busy. But some of that wall-to-wall busy is, quite frankly, relaxation time, right? So being able to listen to an audiobook or a podcast and be entertained while I'm cleaning stalls, that's relaxation time for me. The true relaxation time is being able to sit down at the end of the evening, pick up my knitting needles or my crochet hook, put on some mindless TV. All of the judge shows out there are mindless TV, and they are awesome for making you feel better about yourself. So if you haven't watched Judge Judy or any of the other ones, pop one of those on, man. You will feel better about yourself in a heartbeat. So if you've had a bad day, watch Judge Judy yell at somebody, and suddenly your day's not so bad. But anyway, mindless TV. I typically, while I have the mindless TV on and I'm knitting and crocheting, I can't be doing both at the same time. I will be also listening and semi-watching, right? So I've got YouTube up on the computer, which is on my one side, the pattern up in front of me, the TV up on the wall, and I'm bouncing my attention back and forth between all of them. And yes, I actually do and can retain everything from all of them at the same time. I can also read at the same time as all of that going on. I don't know that that was a skill set that should have ever been developed in my life, but so be it. Here we are. So a lot of times I will have a book on the Kindle open next to the pattern where I'm reading. And if the pattern is easy enough to memorize, and typically they are, I will be working primarily from memory and muscle memory with the knit and the crochet. I'll be reading, I'll be listening to the TV and the YouTube show. And that is my relaxation time. It drives the husband nuts. He doesn't understand it any more than I do. I really don't understand how I can do that. But that's what works for me. So I consume a lot of that type of media, which means that I'm always in the market for new suggestions, new ideas. And I love new content, probably why I like making this content. So before I started doing these grooming videos where I talk to you, and I never realized how much I actually had to say. So again, that's probably something that I should explore interpersonal-wise. I used to take the time and I'd be listening to an audiobook. I don't typically listen to a podcast necessarily. I want a story when I'm doing this. This is meditative for me, right? It's the same repetitive thing. I'm working with my animals. My animals are working with me. Sometimes I'm talking to them. Right now, of course, I'm spending more time talking to you, but they think I'm talking to them, so they don't mind. So having a storyline where, if I happen to zone out for a second because I need to talk to the animal or I'm focused on something, I can pick up the story pretty rapidly without having to go backwards. Narrator in audiobooks. For those of you that do audiobooks, narrator makes a big difference for me. One of my favorites that I read was Nosferatu, and not the new one or even the original one that's about the vampire. This was NOS at the 4, the number 4, ATU, I think, if I recall correctly. And it was a very, very long audiobook. It was 20 plus hours, maybe. The narrator was incredible. And it was the voice and the story was fabulous too, but it was the voice that kept me engrossed, engaged, wanting to come back. Thankfully, I've only had one audiobook, and I won't mention it because it's really just an opinion, but I took it out from Libby. Libby's the library audiobook borrowing place, and that's where I get it from. Borrowing place? What kind of English is that? Dear God. Okay, anyway, where I borrow my audiobooks from is through Libby, which is part of the library offerings. That was much better, wasn't it? So anyway, I only had one that I thought, oh, I'd love this story. I can't wait to hear it. And I downloaded it and I queued it up and I put it in my ears, and I didn't even make it through 90 seconds before I had to turn it off. The narrator and the narration was not working for me at all. The good news is that I was able to take that book out as an actual book. An ebook is what I do. I don't do paper books anymore. But get an ebook and read the story. So I didn't miss out on the story. I just had to consume it in a different way. But that's the only time I've run into it where I have a narration problem where I just can't listen to it. I've certainly come across lots of podcasts that way, and lots of YouTube channels that way. But overall, that's sort of my consumption habits. And I really do, when I say, drop me a comment and let me know what you're listening to, what you're reading, what you're watching, I really do mean it, because I consume so much. I need the suggestions. I need the obscure random references, because I will go check them out, and I'll report back to you if I actually do end up listening, reading, watching, whatever it may be. Now, you'll notice that most of what I've been doing here with Persephone has been fairly straightforward, fairly easy. We've had some work to do to get some junk out of her coat, but look at this coat, right? Oh my goodness, it's just everything you want. And the difference, if you reflect back and go back to the video with Wee Wren, that one really shows off the difference between what I'm talking about when I say the length of coat needs to be even, not layered. Wren's coat is very layered. Persephone is a year older than Wren, so she's got that going for her. But Persephone's coat is essentially the ideal from what we want, right? And it's fairly easy to work through. The junk back here is twofold. It's a result of two things. One, it's the result of some remaining cashmere that still hasn't come out and is coming out now as I work it. But two is also the amount of wet weather we have had, right? So of course their rear ends are going to be worse. Their rear ends are what gets dirty, what they're laying on, what's touching the wet ground. And then of course when it's wet, it's picking up some of the bedding that wouldn't have stuck otherwise, but sticks because it was wet. And then once it sticks, it gets wrapped around and gets tangled. And that's what you're seeing me work out now. It's not really a knot. It's not really anything hideous. And frankly, it's coming out quite easily as long as I use, a gentle technique, number one. And number two, I don't work big chunks at a time. I work small chunks at a time from the bottom up, but it comes out. And that's all it is it's really just dirt and gunk from the wet weather, getting caught up in the longer hair, getting tangled because it's getting stuck in there because it's wet and damp and miserable. So this doesn't happen all year round. It only happens when we have these extensive periods of rain. And frankly, we have had some extensive periods of rain for New Jersey. you know, we're in June now. I mean, weeks of rain that should never have happened. So we're just about done with Persephone. We're really hoping to get her back in the show ring sometime soon, finish her up, get her master champion. She deserves it. I mean, I'm making an assumption that I can get her there, right? Like, it's not about just showing up at the show and poof, hand me a medal. She has to actually be the best in the ring at that time. And the goats around her are getting just as improved as she is, right? Like, so it's always interesting to see my perspective of my herd when I'm looking at my herd and I think, all right, this is my goat, right? She's going to walk in and she's going to rock the ring. And then I put her in a ring, and of course I'm standing there handling her. So I can't really compare her to others in the ring, but I do get a chance to see pictures of her standing in the ring next to and surrounded by her competitive set. And that's always an interesting revelation, right? You go, oh, well, wait a minute now. She's not as good as I thought. Look at this, or look at what's different about her from these other ones. And, you know, then you look at the one that won and you go, yeah, okay, you know, that was a better goat. That was certainly the goat that should have won. And it gives me that next level of perspective to say, you know, what am I doing with the direction of my herd, right? What am I chasing? And I've made decisions based on some of those judgings. I've also made decisions anti some of those judgings. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. We had a judge once who was really just focused on age. Oh my goodness, this goat is 7 years old and pregnant and still in the ring. It must be the best goat ever, and that goat won. Definitely was not. No disparity. It was a beautiful goat, right? And being 7 and pregnant and in the ring is certainly an accomplishment to be able to even catch the judge's eye at that point. So no, I'm not disparaging that goat at all, nor am I disparaging that judge's decision. I just don't agree with the fundamental inclusion of age as a factor. Age is a factor up to a point, right? So if I put a 2-year-old goat in the ring against a 9-year-old goat, I want the judges to consider age, because the 9-year-old goat's coat is probably going to be thinner. They might not have the same body condition that the 2-year-old goat has, etc. But a 2-year-old versus a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old versus a 7-year-old, right? Like, age should not be a factor at that point. So anyway, that's really it. And we're just about wrapping up finally. So all that is finished for Miss Persephone. Now we do some spritzy. Give her one last quick once over, and we let her back out with the herd. And then I have to go clean stalls. Fun times. Not looking forward to that, honestly. It's overdue because of the rain, and it's wet and heavy and miserable, and I'm going to be tired, dirty, and exhausted by the end of it. But I'll also feel accomplished, and I'll have had a chance to knock out a little bit more of my current audiobook. So there's that. All right. I hope you enjoyed a rather long-winded chat about media consumption, meeting Persephone. And I will see you at the next one. I hope that you're having a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, that you are taking care of yourself, and that others are taking care of you as well. And I wish you all the best. I'm so happy to have you here as part of my community. We'll talk to you at the next one. Bye.